A terrible travesty has occurred here. The accuracy of this beautiful Winchester Model 70 has been grievously harmed. But who could have done such a thing to this fine rifle? And how did they manage to do it? Well, that's the mystery we're going to solve today, once and for all. And no one is above suspicion. No one. And before this day is over, I'm going to reveal the identity of the culprit. My part in the tragic life of this rifle began with me being somewhere I shouldn't have been. I was at a notorious online porn site, gun porn that is, and that's where I first saw this beautiful rifle. It just stood out. I couldn't help myself. And yeah, things moved quicker than they should have, but before I knew it, we were on our first range trip together. And that's when I began to realize what a tragic existence this rifle has experienced. The horror. And then subsequent range trips, it became obvious that this rifle had been abused, seriously. And today, we're going to follow all of the clues left behind, because there are many. And we're going to discover exactly what was done to this rifle, and more importantly, who done it. Our first clue came before we even went on our first range trip, and I did not recognize the significance of this at the time. But when I was trying to measure the distance to the lands in this rifle, using the overall length gauge, the bullet, and calipers, I had a lot of variation in my measurement. Now, it's not uncommon to get a particular bullet with a particular rifle due to the shape of the bullet and the shape of the bore. It's not uncommon to get a little variation from time to time. I had a lot of variation in this though, and with every single type of bullet I used that I measured the distance with. And something else I thought was odd. Normally it seems like the bullets I get variation with on the measurement are bullets that want to wedge themselves inside the bore and they stick. They're easy to get out. But I noticed none of these stuck inside the bore. Not one of them. Even though I was getting a lot of variation. I noticed or thought that was odd. It's unusual. And I just chalked it up as just an anomaly. Maybe there's some type of strange fouling in the throat here or something. And I didn't pay it any more attention. But that's our first clue to unraveling this mystery. Our second clue came on the very first range trip with this poor rifle. And it was in the form of horrible accuracy. But I noticed that there was a pattern in the seeming random behavior there. A horizontal pattern. And then that was confirmed on our second range trip, and there was just no denying the horizontal variations we were seeing. And I thought back to something I'd read somewhere in the past, that horizontal variation in your shot groups is most often caused by seating depth issues. And I don't mean stringing, where shots are consistently moving in one direction. I mean horizontal movement, but random. And there it was. We were seeing this at the range with this rifle. After our second range trip, I realized that there was something terribly wrong with my Precious. So I decided to do an immediate exploratory surgery with a bore scope. And despite this rifle being so beautiful on the outside, on the inside there was no denying its troubled past. It was completely full of copper fouling. There are some things that Clorox won't take off. But that's why God gave us Jim Brobst and JB Bore Cleaner. And I cleaned this bore and it was just as shiny as a brand new penny. Made all the difference. But it appeared as though maybe I had been duped, played for a fool in this, because the seller of this rifle had assured me that very few rounds had been fired through it. Yet all of that fouling was in this bore. Well, I chose to believe the seller. And that's important. On a personal level as well. Me personally, I choose to trust people. Yeah. Until they give me a reason not to. And the seller of this rifle never gave me a single reason to doubt him. And I know so many now don't trust others. So many today assume the worst in others. All I can say is if you've seen so many dishonest people that you automatically assume the worst in others, you need to be around other people. Just say. And me choosing to believe the seller of this rifle ended up also being a critical part of solving this mystery, because that gave us our third clue. Not just all of the fouling in this bore, but all of the copper fouling with so few shots fired. After that thorough bore cleaning, we went back to the range for our third and final fateful range trip. And all of the TLC put into this rifle was starting to show off. She was starting to shine. She'd come back from the brink. But I couldn't deny the truth. Something was tragically wrong still. So upon returning, I used the bore scope again, and the copper fouling had returned. This is the copper fouling in this bore after only 28 shots. So it appears that the seller had indeed been telling the truth. And with that, we finally have enough information to solve this mystery. To finally solve this puzzle, I knew I needed to understand more about copper fouling and what causes. I knew that was an important part of this mystery. And after some very in-depth research, I realized that a lot of my beliefs about copper fouling were wrong. I had thought that copper fouling occurred from the bullet literally dragging across the steel in the bore. Well, that's not where it comes from, or at least most of it. There can be rough places that the bullet drags over and it can leave some fouling, but that primarily happens at the chamber end. When we see copper fouling from midways down the bore to the muzzle, that actually comes from superheated gases vaporizing part of the copper jacket, and then that vaporized copper becomes deposited further down the bore. Okay. And what's interesting and relevant here is why that happens. And there are two primary reasons for that. The first, when a bore has not been broken in, there's tool marks and such in the chamber. Well, those marks leave scratches on the bearing surface of the bullet, and those scratches prevent the bullet from making a good seal with the bore, allowing those superheated gases to actually go around the bullet, thus vaporizing part of it and then depositing the copper. The second way is if a bore has been shot out. And shot out doesn't mean worn out. It means the steel has literally started cracking and become very rough like alligator skin. Well, that also prevents the bullet from making a good seal with the bore, allowing gases to escape and go around the bullet again, depositing a lot of copper. In the case of this rifle, we know it's not shot out. We saw the bore through the bore scope after the first cleaning. It's pristine. But it should have also been broken in by now. So that's the answer to our mystery right there. We have or had difficulty measuring the distance to the lands, indicating an issue in the throat. We had horizontal variation in our shot patterns, indicating a seating depth issue, which goes back to difficulty getting an accurate measurement to the lands, indicating an issue in the throat. Then we had a lot of copper fouling in this bore, indicating an issue in this throat, leaving scratches in the bullet, a rough spot or something. And then immediately after cleaning this bore, we had more copper, which tells us the issue is still there. So I came back after our third rain strip. I cleaned this bore thoroughly. I actually cleaned it twice. The first time with Hoppy's number 9, which did an excellent job of removing most of the copper, but it didn't get all of it. I still couldn't see an issue in the throat. And I was convinced there has to be an issue in the throat. That's where all of the clues are leading us. So I cleaned this throat yet again with JB bore cleaner and really polished it. And then came back in here with the bore scope. And sure enough, there's our problem. The smoking gun in the gun. Do you see the problem there? No? Well, I'm going to rotate this bore scope, but before I do, notice the distance from where this land starts to where the chamber ends. This is the chamber. This is your free bore space. This is the start of the land. Now let's rotate this 180 degrees. Now do you notice where this land right here starts in the bore? It starts almost where the chamber ends. There is no free bore space. As we rotate around from this point, you can see the lands are deeper in the bore, deeper and deeper. And that's mystery solved right here. Our lands are crooked, they're uneven. So I submit that the perpetrator that grievously harmed the accuracy of this great rifle was Winchester itself. Or was it? Because I also submit that Winchester's arch nemesis and rival, FN, acquired the Winchester name and is producing rifles this day under Winchester's once great name. And FN is the actual perpetrator here. Through malice or incompetence, I care not, FN did it. So the mystery of the inaccurate Winchester has been solved, but it has not been resolved. So where do we go from here with it? I'm not giving up on this one. And yeah, I said early on it's going to take some patience on this, and I just didn't realize exactly how much. Okay, I called Winchester, well actually Browning, and I talked to their service department. They said I could send this in and they'd take a look at it. And honestly, it might be worth sending it in just because of the potential entertainment value from that. But we'll just say I don't have a lot of confidence in them. Okay, I could carry this to a local gunsmith, and depending on why the lands are not even, all right, he might could straighten that out. Generally, what causes that is when they cut the chamber, the reamer's not square to the bore, so it hits at an angle. If the chamber's not square, I don't think there's much we can do. But if the chamber is square to the bore, then he should be able to take a reamer, go in there, cut the throat just a little bit deeper. That should square up the lands, and then we should be in good shape. If the chamber's not squared, depending on where it's at, maybe he could rechamber it to a 25-06. I don't know. And I would dearly hate to do that. Okay, another option. We could just keep shooting. It's getting better. And just because lands aren't even, and this is something I've had to research because, I mean, we have a black swan here. You don't see this every day. From everything I've done reading up on this, just because a rifle, the lands are uneven in a rifle, that does not mean it can't shoot accurately. Right? It means it's going to be difficult to get it to shoot accurately. They tend to be very load sensitive, which this one has been. And they also tend to not shoot the lighter bullets very well at all, because the lighter bullets are shorter And those shorter bullets want to fishtail more when they hit the lands at that angle and they're just trying to straighten out. And that explains why we had such poor accuracy results with the 100-grain bullets in this rifle. Okay, so that's where we're at. And unfortunately, this project's going to just have to go on hold for right now while I think about our options here and check into different things, talk to local gunsmith. And yeah, and I would just keep on shooting, but that requires time, and that's something I don't have anymore. Deer season's here. All right, I've been fooling with this rifle, trying to get it to shoot and so forth, and yeah, now, literally, in 2 weeks, our muzzleloader season starts, and then 10 days after that, rifle season starts. I've got to get in the woods and go scouting. I can't be fooling with this rifle right now. So for this coming season, I'm going to be hunting with the Parker Hell Lee Enfield conversion and 303 British, and the 1903 A3 30-06 as soon as I get this put back together. But it is finally finished and it's ready to go. So yeah, I got to get busy here. Okay, and then over the next few weeks, while we were working on this project, a few of you probably recognized Joey in the background at the range a few times. Well, he was working on his own project with his 270 WSM, getting it dialed in. So over the next few weeks, he's going to be showing you his project and how it turned out. And for myself, I really enjoyed doing this project, this series on this rifle, even though we're not finished yet. My goal here was for us to just really get in depth on setting up a hunting rifle. I think we accomplished that part. I don't think we could get much more in depth than this. But I did enjoy it, and I did enjoy really being challenged on this rifle, because it was challenging and figuring it out. I learned something from this myself. I learned quite a few things from this myself, and some of the stuff we're going to get into later on. And we're going to do more projects going forward also, because I did really enjoy this. So yeah, and then probably after the first year, that's probably when we'll get back on this one, because all that's going to take some time. So, but we will get it. I am a very patient and stubborn person. Obviously. So, anyway, next week, say hey to Joey. So, God bless, and y'all have a great evening.